Hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Paranormal Tourist. I should, before we even really get started, point out that this is not the first recording of episode 1, because we'll probably have a little discussion about it, I think, shortly. But I'm going to say that we have had our initial recording interfered with by the spirits from the other realm.
Sorry, our initial recording is you being interfered with by spirits. Is that right?
Not under the influence of spirits, I feel like I should point out. I remained in control of my faculties at every single point. My name is Tom, Tom Jordan. I am the host of the Paranormal Tourist, and I am joined here today by 3 intrepid adventurers who are going to come with me on this grand exploration of all things paranormal. Each week we are going to bring to you a variety of pieces of research that we have done individually on things that we find interesting from the world of the paranormal, and then we're going to chat and debate and possibly joke about them at times. And from time to time we will bring you special episodes where we are subjected, some of us more than others, to experiments and additional adventures. We'll get to that in just a moment. So joining me today, I have Dani Magellan. Say hello, Dani.
Hello, Dani.
Very funny. Sam Bean, say hi.
Hi.
There we are. Straightforward instructions are sometimes the best. And we are also joined by paranormal expert Ross Andrews.
Hello.
Very nice. Okay, so we should probably introduce ourselves a little bit before we carry on and before we talk about the spectacular paranormal experiences that we've already had recording this first episode. So my name is Tom. I'm going to consider myself a reluctant skeptic, which is a term I have just made up. And what I mean by that is I have been a consistent enthusiast of all things paranormal since my days of being a small child, which are now long over. Thankfully, I can reach all the stuff at the top of the cupboard. I spent many hours reading from my favourite tome, the Amazing Spooks and Mysteries book that I feel like I should say came into my possession mysteriously as a child, but I'm sure it was bought for me by a relative.
Mysteriously wrapped.
Mysteriously left, yeah, with my name attached to it.
Wow.
How did they know?
That's the extent of my paranormal experience. No, but I have a huge interest in the paranormal. But to this day, I can't call myself a believer. Although I'm very, very happy if somebody is able to change that for me. Dani.
Yes. Hello.
Introduce yourself.
I am Dani, and I don't know whether I'd call myself. I sort of maybe the stopgap in between believer and skeptic. I have a healthy dose of both.
One could say a tourist.
One could say a tourist.
In fact, one did.
In fact, we
Both
did.
of us did.
So
Two
much
said a
so.
tourist.
So much so. We named the podcast after it. So I was a massive fan of the famous 90s series Strange But True, hosted by the delectable Michael Aspel.
Weren't we all?
Well, absolutely.
Apart from Sam Bean, who has never seen
young.
anything. He hasn't seen Nightmare, he hasn't seen Crystal Maze,
Maze.
Strange But True, all the good stuff.
All the classics. So I do have a couple of experiences that cannot be explained. Or maybe they can, I don't know. But yeah, there have been a couple of experiences that I take with me in the belief camp that I sometimes stay in.
For those of you who obviously can't see us on cameras, your belief camp is in your left hand.
Yes,
apparently.
my belief camp is my left hand.
Yeah.
It's sort of bowl shaped.
Should we ask you to commit to what's in your right hand? Is there anything in your right hand, or is it
I don't know, but it sounded
Skeptic
hot.
City, maybe.
a little bit of a history?
Yeah.
Something, a snake. There's
Yeah.
a snake in your right hand.
Yeah, the snake of science.
My science snake.
The snake, your science
Your
snake.
science snake.
Well, I think that's a good opportunity.
Anyway, enough about me.
Introduce Sam Bean.
Hello.
His science snake in his left hand.
It's in my hand. It's in my hand. I am the guinea pig. I'm like Dani. I am half in, half out. I don't really know where to go with
We're
this.
talking about the science snake.
Oh, we're not.
Very good at digging himself into holes.
I am indeed. I pride myself
With his
in it.
science
what's
snake.
that? Yeah, my mum is a huge believer, but my dad is a massive skeptic, and I think it comes from that. Like, there's loads of family experiences that mum will talk about back with her grandparents and mum that have came from really far up north in tiny little villages and tiny little cottages that are like really scary about.
So how far north are we talking?
We're talking about really, really far. Carlisle, in fact. Carlisle, in fact, near the land of the Scots. In like a creepy little village, quite like Cheltenham.
A creepy little village like Cheltenham. For those who don't know, Cheltenham has a population of 120,000.
Where's that place to plough? Where's that?
Where's that place to plough?
Yeah.
Pressbury. Like that. There's at least an episode, I think.
Yes.
It's kind of like that where they're from. And it's like creepy little town, but then Dad's from Bedford and he's experienced nothing. So it's
Sam, as you mentioned, is the guinea pig. We've also labelled him slightly less.
He's the ghost gimp.
With slightly less respect as the ghost gimp. He's the one in all his youthful enthusiasm that is going to be subject to various experiments that are going to be planned out by the next person to introduce himself. Last and by no means least, it is Ross Andrews, paranormal expert.
Hello, it's me. You just said it all.
Oh, take it off it.
But yes, talking about Pressbury, I think it'd be a very good idea, whilst you're Googling Pressbury, to look up the book Paranormal Cheltenham, because there's a big chunk in there about walking around Pressbury. And most importantly, buy a copy because I will receive the money.
Don't know if you can hear that. It's me thumbing through.
I'd like to point out for those who are listening, that is not Tom farting onto a microphone. That is the pages of a book being rifled through. There we go. So yeah, I've written lots of books. Paranormal Cheltenham, Paranormal Oxford, Forest of Dean. I'm in several other books, and one that I'm going to be talking about today is paranormal book St.Briavels Castle, the most haunted building in the world. So when we get onto that, I will pull out my book and show it to everybody.
Look forward to that.
Lovely.
As long as it's not joined by Sam's science snake, I think we'll be able to cope. Okay, so really briefly, I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that that we've been interfered with. I think there's probably a better way of putting it, but it's done now, isn't it? It's been digitally recorded, and as everybody knows, that means it absolutely cannot be changed in any other way. So we started recording this episode, and strange things started to happen.
Strange but true.
Strange but true. I'm going to pass over to Ross, who's probably got a more detailed explanation.
Absolutely. On a lot of ghost hunts that I've been on, I've done hundreds and hundreds. One of the phenomena that happens is electrical equipment can quite often go wrong, and we're using a Korg D1600 multi-track disc recorder here that we've been using for years. It works absolutely perfectly until we came here to record, and we've had to start the episode again because for some reason it just went completely weird and stopped recording. So whether that's paranormal or whether that's dodgy equipment off eBay, I don't know. But what you'll often find at ghost hunts is everyone complains about their batteries going. That always happens, but that's normally due to the fact you're in a freezing cold environment and they don't realise that when batteries get cold, they don't work. Quite often cameras will stop working, recorders will stop working when paranormal activity is just about to happen. So with any luck, we're all about to be possessed.
That's the spirit.
And with any luck, we'll capture that on at least one recording device around this table.
I feel like I should also throw in that whilst I'm not going to share the address of where we're recording this, it is absolutely an old creepy building.
When you moved into Buckingham Palace, man.
Sam, your cover's been blown.
I know.
I've been blown.
You may as well speak back in your normal Queen voice.
Okay.
That was disturbingly good. So there we are.
Queen's turned into a parrot.
We're obviously onto something because we've already been as I say,
Interfered
interfered with, possibly
But
by
also,
another
one
realm.
thing we haven't done is, for those of you who are listening, if you turn the volume up, you might hear a slight ticking noise, like a clock in the background. There is no clock in here, yet every time we start recording, suddenly this clock is appearing. And it appears to have faded out now, but now that I've mentioned it, it's absolutely stopped.
Either that, or it is there as a subliminal method of sending you mad. And the hope is that in 20 years' time or so, people will be searching for this episode that fueled an urban myth that somewhere out there's a podcast episode that sends people mad.
Perhaps it's a ghost communicating to us via Morse code.
by the same letter.
Well, it's
over.
a tick, isn't that like it was SOS is ... dash whatever.
Yes,
dash,
so
dot.
So is that just loads of S's?
Maybe it's the S's and it's the science snake. It's the
science
science snake. It's just a long.
Oh, sorry, that's me.
That's you.
Yes.
That's we're
Put your
we've got
science
to
snake away. We can carry on.
We've got to the bottom of it. Okay, so we should probably move on to the bits and pieces that we've been
Something actually
researching.
paranormal.
Something paranormal. Something actually paranormal. I'm going to talk a little bit about harbingers of death.
Oh, lovely.
Oh.
Something happy.
Something cheerful to start us off. You can add a little
Start
effect
light.
to that maybe later, Ross. Harbingers of death. So, going back to my favourite childhood tome, Amazing Spooks and Mysteries. There was one. Or,
Can we point out
one,
you do own more than one book? Because I'm just checking.
There are some others on the shelf, but if you look at them closely, you realise there are a whole load of covers, and the insides of the books are blank.
Are all the same.
It's just the same book over and over again in different reprints. And so there, I mean, I was really keen on this book, but there were a couple of things in particular that really I was quite obsessed with. Now, there's lots and lots of different stuff, lots of different stories to do with kind of cultural superstitions that relate to this particular subject. In my research, I've been reading a little bit about the banshee, for example. We kind of all associate banshees with that horrific kind of scream that they're supposed to make. But actually, something I wasn't really aware of is that the sound of a banshee is supposed to tell you that somebody, and Ross can probably correct me on this, that somebody you know
is likely to die.
Not
likely to be yourself, but someone close.
Somebody close,
really?
which in many ways is worse, I would say. And then kind of looking a little bit further down through that subject, something which I'm going to come back to because it relates a little bit to these stories that I read as a kid. There's a doppelganger. Now, we watched a program quite recently about an app that can help you find your doppelganger across the world, and there's a whole scientific
It's called
process.
Tinder.
There's big, not your partner, your doppelganger. And people have been meeting their doppelgangers. Some meeting face to face and realizing they really do look like each other. If you look up, I think it was on Channel 4 or something like that. If you look up these programs, there are a couple who definitely they come face to face and. In reality, they look to the same kind of in one photo, but in actual fact, they look nothing like each other. But actually, legendarily, is that a word?
Why not?
Legendarily, I've just coined it.
Then it becomes a word.
Just coined it. That's Shakespeare did it over and over and over again. I've just coined it. But legendarily, if you were to meet your doppelganger, it was a sign that you were going to die.
Wasn't it one of you is going to die?
One of them is. One assumes
or are they
that.
both going to die.
Or what it means is you've no idea what a mirror is.
Interestingly,
And if you walk into it, you might die.
Interestingly, one of the stories that actually comes up relating to that is to do with Abraham Lincoln, and I met this one particularly from my skeptic side, which is that apparently he. Not long before he died. There's more to it, so bear with me. He saw himself in the mirror. I mean, that's a relatively straightforward process.
Saw two of himself in the mirror.
Well, no. What it was that was particularly,
on
and
the
I don't
front
know,
page of the
maybe
mirror.
he
What are we
had, maybe he had a particularly bad night. But apparently, what he saw was himself in the mirror, but looking very different to how he did in real life. So he was incredibly pale. And he looked gaunt, and he looked.
Well, this actually is going to link into an experiment we're going to do on Ghost Gimp at some point, which is a thing called scrying, where you can look into a mirror and your reflection isn't what you physically look like there and then.
See, now this is interesting because as I'm, like I say, a reluctant skeptic, I still find that absolutely terrifying, and I can say at this point I'm really glad that's happening to Ghost Gimp and not to myself. Because I'm a reluctant skeptic, but also a massive wimp when it comes to anything related to this kind of thing. So that's Doppelganger. But I mean, we've not seen any major stories relating to that program where suddenly like a whole wave of those people
There's a lot of very
died.
famous ones of those. I mean, Napoleon had one. For a start, and I'm not just mean look-alike that he sent out places. He was known to be in several places at once. And there's a lot of the doppelganger stories will relate to people who are dying elsewhere and then are seen.
Okay. So that's that. I'm gonna come to that in just a second. Some other interesting bits and pieces just to fly through a couple. One which is definitely going to absolutely creep me out on a constant basis, which is 3 knocks of death, which is apparently if you hear 3 unexplained knocks, then that is a terrifying.
There was one last night.
Oh, don't say that.
There was one last night.
Terrifying.
We took swords upstairs.
I mean, fact. I was there.
Facts.
It happened.
I feel like I should point out not real swords. We took
Replica swords.
toy swords from my
Because nothing
my child's
deters
collection.
a burglar than toy swords.
I think one of them may even have been a plastic Darth Vader lightsaber, wielded by Sambia. We went searching for it. But apparently, three knocks of death.
Do they have
is
to
again
be one after the other?
I
Or
think it
just-
needs to be
Well, I think otherwise that just means somebody has knocked over the period of your life 3 times on your door, doesn't it?
It's
I think they've got to be quite close at least. Haven't they?
in actual, it's quite specifically if it's on the door or the window. So you hear somebody
we've
knocking.
bleeped.
We bleeped. There's a bleeping thing.
I don't know how that's bleeping because that phone isn't actually.
It's telling you that it's somebody's birthday.
Well, I don't see how because that phone doesn't. Right, we're recording on a phone as well, but that phone doesn't have a SIM card in it or anything. It's just used as a recorder, so I have no idea why that's bleeping.
Oh my goodness.
Dun-dun-dun.
The plot thickens. Okay, so 3 knocks of death. I
If
said I
there's
was
another
going to
2 beep beep beeps on my
Two,
phone.
then we're gonna, like
Actually,
the
it
digital
went
version.
da-da-da, didn't
Yeah,
it? That was it.
that
That was the
was
3.
That's the 3 knocks.
That's the modern day version.
But it's not my phone. so
3
I'm
bleeps
like-
of
3
death.
texts of doom.
And there's various animals. In fact, one of these did very much relate to. One of these related to this book I used to read as a kid to the extent where I randomly, really completely out of the blue, went up to my dad while he was doing the washing up or something like that when I was about 10 and
I don't know
made
if anyone
him.
can hear in the background. There's a
An
siren going
ambulance.
past. Perhaps
They're
that
coming
relates
for
to
me.
our 3
That's
tweets
it.
of
You're
doom.
there.
Yeah.
And I went up to my dad and made him promise on the spot with no explanation that we would never go abroad at Christmas.
Right.
Because I'd read this story about, and I can't, unfortunately, I can't find any of the additional stuff about this online, but about a bull, as in moo but angry. Ooh, there
Thank
you
you
go.
for that. None of us
you
knew
are-
what you were talking about.
I'm a bull.
There we go. There's
the
the
angry
confusion. It's the confusion on
movies.
Sam's face.
I've always wondered
that-
what they were called. I've always called them the angry movies.
The
That's all my
angry
life.
movies.
Angry movies, along with the science steak. There's a whole range of T-shirts coming out here, I think. And apparently it appears on Christmas Day somewhere in Texas, and if you see it, then you are going to die.
So right, this is an angry moo beast.
An angry
that
moo
appears
beast.
in Texas.
In Texas.
The home of angry moo beasts in America.
I think there was
So
something
you didn't want
about
to go
it.
away for Christmas? I mean, I'd just avoid Texas.
Well, look, I mean, I was
That
quite
well-known
young. This
Christmas
was
destination.
It was terror. I was frozen with terror. I wasn't thinking straight. But I mean, I think, like I said, once I have got hold of this book again, I'll read it to you in detail. This short entry. But I think there was something about it, like it was always shadowed on the horizon, or maybe kind of, I don't know, flames coming out of its nostrils or something like that.
Maybe at some point.
Probably on a barbecue, I expect.
People could give you like a little list of other books you could read.
Well, I've got
Very
Ross's
good.
book, so I've got.
Mr. Angry Boo.
We generally just read the same Mr. Men book. We've got a small child, and we do read the same Mr. Man book over and over.
Mr.
And
Poltergeist.
and then something I didn't really know much about, which again I'm just glancing past, is Black Shuck. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Black Shuck, which is apparently in Norfolk,
As in the track by the darkness.
and a track by the not a truck, a track by the darkness. But it's apparently is a similar thing. A vicious hound of the Baskerville style beast. I imagine there's possibly a relationship there between those two stories.
Well, a lot of those could be explained by ABCs. Yes, alien black cats. If you come from an environment that has never seen a puma, a leopard, or whatever, your brain may never have learnt what it looks like. So it will automatically try and it'll run through everything going, what is this? What is this? Oh, it must be, it's a sort of dog size, it's whatever, it's growling, therefore we think it's a big black dog. And your brain will see that. It will physically see a big black dog because your brain has gone, well, that's what I think it is, so that must be what stood in front of me. And alien black cats, ABCs, have been seen all over the country going thousands of years back. So there is a possibility that what people are spotting are actually panthers and so on, but their brain has never learnt to pigeonhole the category of black cat.
So even more terrifyingly, there is the potential that roaming across the country are large predatorial, is that right? Predatorial cats.
Certainly in Gloucestershire, where we are right now, the various departments of the police and so on are trained to deal with panthers and so on. If you ask the right policeman, they will actually tell you, yes, we're trained in this, we know what to do, and so on. If you ask the wrong one, they'll go, don't be ridiculous, they don't exist. But there are actual proper things to do when they're reported, and certain areas of forest will get closed down and all that whilst they investigate.
Don't go walking in the woods on your own.
No. Well, you might also... Well, in fact, I'll tell you about that when we get onto a particular place.
Cool. Okay. So just to round my little section off, the one story in particular that really took me as a child was this story. And again...
what book is this from?
I don't know, but
well, I'm glad you asked. It was from a little-known book, Amazing Spooks and Mysteries, available on eBay.
Which won't be available for long because he's plugged it so many times.
All 2 copies are going to be bought before I get to one. So hold off until I've confirmed on here that I've definitely got a copy. So anyway, it was about this. So that there's a like an admiral or a ship's captain, and he is a member of the aristocracy, and there's a big party being thrown at his residence by his wife, and he is off at sea, and he is seen by several guests walking in through the front door. This is a detail I'm not sure about. I think possibly soaking wet or possibly not. Maybe that depends on the rendition of the story. But he comes in and he walks up the stairs, and somebody remarks to his wife, oh, I didn't know, so and so was here. And it later turns out that at that particular time he was going down with his ship in the middle of, let's say, the Atlantic. He was never seen again. And that was something again that particularly interested me as a kid. Maybe it's sort of paranoia, but I was always worried that I was going to see anyone from like a family member to the family dog. I was going to see them somewhere while they were somewhere else, and that meant that that was the end for them. A very
similar one happened in Cheltenham during World War II. It's virtually the same story, and it was somebody who saw. I think it was somebody saw somebody in the cinema at the same time as they were dying abroad.
That is
terrifying.
That is terrifying. There's something particularly eerie, I think, about that connection. There's always something obviously eerie about anything to do with the paranormal, but when it has some kind of connection, allegedly has some kind of connection to some kind of action in the real world, I think that's what makes it particularly. That's probably why I was so obsessed with it as a kid, and that whole subject of death.
Ever been on a cruise? Since?
No, absolutely. I'm terrified. No, I'm terrified of things. I'm not going on a cruise. Not going on a cruise to Texas.
Never go on a Christmas cruise in Texas.
Not going on a Christmas cruise to Texas.
Christmas special cruise to Texas.
Cool. I think that's. I'm going to shut up now. Who would like to go next? Dani.
Yes.
What have you got for us?
Well, I once visited a place in Cornwall, Bodmin Jail, which was built in the 1770s, I want to say.
Okay, so it's not.
Saying? No one's going to stop you.
Yeah.
It's not a working jail. This isn't like a. I once visited. A jail.
I visited for 18 months.
It was closed down in 1927.
It was supposed to be 2 years, but I put out on good behaviour.
Yeah, it was closed down in 1927, and it is now, in fact, a very lovely restaurant. But you can also visit the jail, the sort of jail cells underneath. But between 1785 and 1909, 55 people were executed, all but 4 of which were public. And I was just quite interested because when I went there, the last time I went there, I went down into the cells, and it is very eerie. It's very cold. But then, part of me says it was very cold. That was a temperature thing, not necessarily. There are just some places that are cold.
I think you're being visited by the science.
As opposed to it was just cold to you. I walked in, it was very aloof.
It was very standoffish. But however, so there in 1878, there was a lady called Selina Wedge, and she was arrested for the murder of her youngest son, Harry. Now, she said that she killed him because her lover, James Westwood, promised to marry her if the boy was out of the way. Now, he denies this.
It was all a misunderstanding. He literally meant, could you just move that tire?
Just move him slightly to the left. She killed him. And,
wow, fair enough.
It was very awkward.
Extreme response.
The jury wanted leniency, but the judge sentenced her to death. So on the 15th of August in 1878, which was a Thursday.
See, I'm more intrigued about the jury at this point. Somebody has just killed a child, yet the jury's going, don't worry about it.
It's all right. She seems nice other than that.
He was stood in the way.
They wanted leniency, I think, because she was because she was kind to her other children.
No, that's fine then. I haven't murdered the other 10. Come on.
If you go by percentages, this is actually I'm actually only one for however many she had. So she was led from her cell clutching a white handkerchief, which, as we all know, suggests nothing. And when, just as she was killed, she said, "Lord, deliver me from this miserable world where children are in the way." Anyway, so her body, which was still clutching the white handkerchief, was left dangling for an hour before being cut down. But it is alleged that her ghost wanders the prison and tries to reach out to small children who often inquire about the crying lady in the long dress. Now, when I went, I was not a child.
Were you a crying lady in a long dress?
I wasn't a crying lady in a long dress, as I remember.
But I walked in just batting children out of the way.
Just like smacking them, I don't know why. And then another phenomenon is that pregnant women tend to become very emotional on the 3rd and 4th floors of Bodmin Jails, which is allegedly or supposedly where Selina...
No. What you're saying is pregnant women have climbed up 3 or 4 flights of stairs.
and are very emotional about it.
I feel like it's much safer for me to not comment at this point.
Because he is a pregnant lady.
I am a pregnant lady.
He is very emotional right now. But yes, that was supposedly where she projects her feelings of guilt and remorse onto the pregnant ladies. I was also not a pregnant lady.
For the 3rd and 4th floor.
Well, that's where, yes. Because the 1st floor is, where she chilled.
She's very efficient.
That's where she darned her white handkerchief, so they don't get any.
I was waiting for the white handkerchief to have a more prominent part in the haunting.
Yeah, I think it caught me because I thought, you wave a white handkerchief
I was
when
expecting,
you're surrendering.
is this a ghost puppet or something?
Yeah. That's Harry. That's the little boy.
I've gone straight in my head for a practical solution, which
Right.
is simply that I imagine if there's a white handkerchief, then that's probably just more visible. So if what people see is they see a white handkerchief, and
what
children see the
there
crying
is a
lady.
theory to do with ghosts fading over time, and there's a thing like with the stone tape theory where the environment records something that's traumatic. So say this woman was in there crying her eyes out with a bright pink handkerchief. When she's seen again over the years, it will become a sort of a lesser bright pink, and eventually very, very vaguely pink, until eventually it turns white and eventually disappears. And a lot of ghosts of screaming women running down a corridor, for example, turn into a fading thing until eventually you just hear them, and then you just hear the footsteps, and then eventually it disappears altogether. Which is a theory why we don't have many cavemen ghosts, or we don't have many sort of Bronze Age ghosts. They tend to be more sort of Victorian or something like that, or where a massive battle has happened, and the theory is it's given off a huge amount of energy, and that's what you're picking up on. Roman ghosts that we see tend to be more than one Roman. They tend to be like an army traipsing through somewhere, something like that. So the idea being is that these things would eventually fade. So a white handkerchief if you spotted it, could well be a ghost in its last,
form
before it fades off to be sort of
Maybe
like just
it was
a
a
sound.
leopard print handkerchief
That's what
that
it
she
was.
started off with.
Yeah.
She was actually very saucy.
I mean, she must have been pretty. If she was willing to kill her kid to
For
get
her
married, she must
lover.
have been pretty saucy.
Perhaps that's why the jury let her off. They went, I mean, look at her.
Yeah, she is white. Yeah, waving the leopard print. I have more children I could kill if any of you want to marry me. Oh dear. Such bad taste.
Now, Bodmin Jail
but
has
yes.
had a lot of ghost hunts and things going on there. And at one point, I think they even used it as a nightclub as well.
Oh, did they?
back in
I
its
only
history.
knew. I've been
Yeah.
to there as a restaurant. I think they have, and there was definitely a bar.
That is
But I
that
had a Diet Coke, so it
I
wasn't
can't
the
remember
most
much about this,
exciting.
but there was definitely
There
a bar.
was definitely a bar.
is the environment for a 90s British slasher film.
Yes.
The
Absolutely.
haunted,
Well, I think the most haunted crew
Most
was in
haunted-
there.
It's a very
Execution
famous
Field
episode
Jail.
of Most Haunted because it's the one where Kieran sort of let it be known to various members of the crew, not to Derek, because Derek Akora, for those of you who don't know, very good psychic medium, and I say very good in the fact that he's very entertaining. He let it slip that there was a spirit there called Creed Keffer. Yes.
Is this the anagram of Derek Faker?
Which is an anagram of Derek Faker. And that's the episode where that one happens in Bodmin Jail.
Oh my goodness! So I knew about that, and I hadn't connected the two. I'm excellent at research. Subtext.
You're better than Derek Akora. Put it that way.
Yeah,
So-
quite.
you're also very modest. It's worth pointing out there. I think.
Thank you very much. But yes, I
But
thought it was quite a spooky. I did.
it
think
is
was a
open to the
spooky
public.
building. It is open to the public.
Which is the whole point of
and they do a
Paranormal
lovely
Tourists.
lunch.
You can go there.
You can go there,
Yes,
you
and
can
maybe
visit
we
yourself.
will. And on the way, we'll maybe go and see if we can spot the beast of Bodmin Moor, which is perhaps a puma.
Whilst out on Bodmin Moor, please be careful of angry,
Angry
movies.
movies.
And we'll send the ghost gimp to chase after them as an experiment. Okay, well, I think that brings us firmly on to Ross's.
Firmly. Oh, no, I'm not so sure. Firmly.
This
Slightly
brings us
wobbly, I
vaguely teetering along on a
Excellently led.
meandering onto to Ross's section of
Yes.
research.
Right, well, when we say research, I'd like to point out there's been some fantastic research here so far from everyone around the table. I've done some very lazy research, basically talk about something that I did years ago. That way I don't have to research it, I just have to vaguely remember it. There's a book I wrote, which is still available on Amazon, St.Briavels Castle, the most haunted building in the world. I do have to say that in the Clark's way. In the world.
In the world.
So,
Need
if
like a
you
little
want to
music
visit,
in it.
there's a place called St.Briavels Castle, the most haunted building in the world. It's now a youth hostel. And so the best thing about it being a youth hostel is that I constantly get sent stories that still happen to people there. It's in a place called St.Briavels in the Forest of Dean. It's kind of 5 miles away from the nearest point of civilization, so if you are staying there, take food and drink with you because there's no shops around for ages, but there is a haunted pub in the moat as well. It was King John's hunting lodge, and they make a big thing about this, saying like, oh yeah, look at this, must be a famous castle, King John did lots of hunting here, when on record he actually stayed there for about 11 days. So how that can, whether that classes it as his, I don't know. But I think I've stayed in travel lodges longer than that, so I think I now own travel lodge. But anyway, the best thing about the place is every single room is haunted. And most castles, if you go to a castle, you'll go in and they'll say, oh, this is the haunted tower or the haunted room or the haunted toilet, whatever. St.Briavels is that every single room has had many different stories associated with it. Some of my favourite ones, and I've stayed in this particular bed, the scary bed. And it's not scary because I was in it. It's called the scary bed because...
But a little bit scary.
That's quite scary, yeah. Particularly for the other person who booked to stay there. Hello, nice to see you. No, I'm a ghost. Ooh. No, put your phone down. And anyway, people who stayed in this bed quite often have never stayed for the whole night because they got so scared because the sheets were being ripped off them in the middle of the night. And one guy
Not by Ross.
Not by me. Not by me. Honest, it wasn't by me. I can provide witnesses to prove I was elsewhere. One person, they went in the next day, as they do, to clean the place, and the bed had been wedged up against the wall. And they asked the guy and said, well, why did you move the bed? It's perfectly fine. Why did you do it? And he said, well, it was the only way I could keep the sheets on because they kept being pulled off me all night. And so instead of getting up and screaming and running out, he actually just, it was like, right, I'll gaffer tape the duvet on or something to make sure the ghost can't get me.
That's a practical man right there.
Yeah.
Stubborn, possibly.
But there was a couple of cyclists that stayed in there and they were booked in for a whole week. They left after the first night. And I don't mean like after the first, in the night they actually left. There was one woman who was found at the other end of the castle in the King John's Lounge, as it's known, and she was in her pyjamas and crying. And she wouldn't even go back in the room to pack her bags. The staff had to go in there and pack these bags for her. And that's in the East Tower, and quite a lot of school groups used to book to go there with their classes, because obviously from an historical point of view it's brilliant. And a lot of the teachers wouldn't go into that tower. They'd let the kids stay in there. And a lot of them said because they were getting fed up of the noise, they'd often go in there in the middle of the night because they could hear kids running up and down the stairs and playing and so on. And then they walk in there and all the kids are asleep. No one's been up and down. You know, it's blatantly obvious nobody's been doing anything. And then they walk out and then you could hear the kids running up and down the steps again. I've heard that myself. The very first time I went to that castle, and we went within 5 minutes of being there, we walked into that tower because we were looking for somewhere to film, and the oubliette room was locked. I didn't know this at the time, but we walked up to the oubliette door and we could hear people inside it. And we went, oh, that must be an office or something. We'll come back. And so we walked up the steps and looked at the other rooms and then came back downstairs, and then there was no noise. So I knocked on the door and went, oh, no, it's locked. We can't get in. So we went and spoke to the manager who was there, chatting to the rest of the film crew. And we said, can we get the key? Whoever was in the oubliette, they've locked it. Can they let us in? And they went, well, nobody's been in there. And we said, well, there was. We could hear there was a conversation going on in there, and that's why we went to another room. And when they came out, they've locked it. And they went, no, I am the only person here. I have the keys. I haven't unlocked that room, but there's definitely nobody in there because it's only you two and the rest of the film crew have been chatting to me. And so that, I would say, within the first 2 minutes of being in the castle, I experienced paranormal happenings. Now, if you are going to stay there, that's not the only room. Every single room has got something. I was once doing a radio show and I was in the room above the oubliette, and we had a person in the room above that and a person in the oubliette room. And we're all chatting away because obviously with broadcast you can't just sit there being quiet. And on this recording, you can hear me saying, oh, and that's, I think it was a woman called Ruth is upstairs, and you can hear her walking about, and you can hear the footsteps as she walks down across my ceiling and her floor, all the way to the front of the castle, and there she is coming back like this. And we finished this recording, and I went up the stairs, and I said, well, I didn't get anything, did you? And she said, well, I don't know. I said, well, the only thing I got was you walking around, kind of sort of having a go at her for it because she shouldn't have been in that. And she said, oh, do you mean over by the window? I said, yeah. And she said, I haven't moved. And I said, what? And she said, well, I heard it as well. That's why I'm asking, was it by the window? And we both recorded these footsteps wandering around in there. I mean, in that room, there was a group ghost hunting up there, and they were quite sceptical, but they all said, come on, this is boring, nothing's happening, we've been sat in the dark doing nothing. If you're here, do something. At which point, they were at one end of the room, and where the footsteps have been heard, this is a totally different time, but where the footsteps have been heard, a coin just rolled from there towards them and stopped right in front of them on the floor. What else? Oh, one of the best places you can go. Now the problem is, obviously, being a youth hostel, you can't always get into these rooms because somebody might be in there, but there is a lot of rooms you can get into, and one is the old kitchen. And you can sit in the old kitchen all night, it's not a problem. And there's a poltergeist activity that's happened in there a lot. And at one time we had 70 people staying in the castle, and all but 5 of them saw stones appearing near the ceiling and then just falling completely vertically down. Not sort of ballistic arc or like somebody had thrown them. They literally come straight from the middle of the ceiling and down on the floor. Now the ceiling, it was a sealed plaster ceiling, so it's not like it's stonework anyway. There's no way anything could appear. And there was a group of 5 people, and they didn't experience anything all night, but they were always in the room next to the thing that happened. And everybody, there were 65 people going, oh, that was an unbelievable night. We all saw this poltergeist activity, these stones getting thrown around. These 5 people going, oh, for crying out loud, come on. And it got worse because they walked off and said, right, well, we're going to go in the East Tower. You lot stay here in this one room. We're all in what used to the refectory room, and we're all in there. So 65 of us crammed into this one room, and they walked off, and they said, right, if you lot are in here, we know it can't be any of you doing anything, and so they went in there, at which point we all heard the furniture moving above us in the chapel. And I'm saying moving, I'm talking like bang, as a table gets dragged across and a chair gets dragged across. Everybody was accounted for. We got video cameras, so we know they were in the East Tower, it wasn't them doing it. And they came back and went, nah, nothing. And we all sort of went, you going to tell them? So, yeah, one of the most haunted buildings you can ever go into. There was an incident. There was a 6 or 7 foot long table made of solid oak that lifted up and slammed on the floor, lifted up a good few inches and sort of slammed down. But getting back onto the ABC Big Cats. One of the stories in the King John's Lounge, which is another one of the rooms you can go in and stay in all night, is a crying baby. And when they renovated the ceiling there, they found a dead mummified baby above the fireplace.
Oh my goodness.
And the crying hasn't been seen or heard that many times since, but this was in the 70s, I think it was. But quite often when we do seances or Ouija boards, that kind of thing, in that room, people report hearing crying babies. Now, if you're from a city, you might not realise a fox and even hedgehogs can sound like babies crying. And so we went in there, myself and a guy called Tim, who was a brilliant ghost hunter. And this table getting really excited. They're all doing a Ouija board and they're really excited. And we said, what is it? What is it? So we keep hearing the crying baby. And then faintly we heard this noise. And they went, there it is again. And Tim and I went, that's a lamb. No, it's a baby. It's a baby. And we went, no, really, it's a lamb. I'm telling you, it's a lamb. No, it's a baby. I said, no, there's a field over there with sheep in it. It's lambing season. That is a lamb. And they wouldn't believe us. They were determined that they had heard a ghost. And this is a problem with a lot of ghost hunters. If they've decided they've heard a ghost, it's a ghost.
Yeah.
Right? It doesn't matter what you say. So Tim and I said, look, we've got night vision cameras. We will go outside into that field, film it, right? And we all synchronise watches. And we said, if it makes a noise at the same time as you hear the baby crying, we can prove to you. So Tim and I walked out the castle. And as we're going down the bit that used to be the drawbridge bit, we just heard this noise in the background, right? In the graveyard that's in front of you. Perfect place, right? And Tim and I just went, what the as we walked down this thing. And so we went into the graveyard and sort of split up, sort of looking around to try and find this thing. Now, Tim and I have both, and I turned to him and said, Tim, you and I have both seen pumas, leopards, whatever, in the forest. And he went, yeah. Why are we walking towards what could actually kill us? He said, both of us have seen ghosts. We know they're harmless, right? Both of us have seen big cats that could kill us, and we appear to be walking towards it. And we'd split up at this point, and Tim just said, isn't this the bit where you scream at the television, what are you doing, you idiots? So we came out of the graveyard thinking this is a very stupid idea. And as we walked back up the road towards the castle, he walked from my right side, walked round the back of me, and walked to my left side, which is closer to the castle. So what are you doing? Why have you done that? He said, well, I just need to be closer to the castle than you so that I can get back. When it jumps on us, it will go for you, not me. But yeah, phenomenal place. You can go and stay there for the night for about 30 quid. Or you can hire the entire castle for the night. We used to hire it for about £1,500 a night. You'd have bed and breakfast there and everything. Do big ghost hunting events there. And I know we are going back there. If you want to have a look at the place, if you go on YouTube and look up Great British Ghost Series 2, St.Briavels Castle, you will see me with Michaela Strachan walking around the place telling you some more of these stories.
Cool.
Fantastic.
Amazing. Michaela Strachan.
I'll try to do that all in one breath. I was trying to get that as quick as possible.
Sam, do you know who Michaela Strachan is?
I have no idea.
Oh,
have you seen Labyrinth?
Sam.
Sake.
Have I seen Labyrinth? Yeah.
I thought you
Yeah,
because
yeah.
Michaela Strachan's in that.
She's in it. Have you seen her? No.
But I will actually, talking about Michaela Strachan, she did possibly see one of the ghosts at the castle because we were there and I started telling her about the ghost. There's a dog And it's a massive dog, right? That people see, and many people have seen this dog, and it's so real looking that people have actually got out of its way to let the dog go past. And we were filming away, and we were gone into this one room. The old kitchen has a thing called a dog spit in it, which is a big wheel on the wall, and they would put a dog inside it. The dog would run round that wheel with a chain, would sort of turn the meat on the fire. And so I started telling them the story about this ghost dog. And I finished off by saying, and obviously there are no dogs allowed in the building, apart from guide dogs, you know, and so there's no possible way it could have been a dog. And she went, but there is a dog in the building. I said, no, they're not allowed in. There's nobody here but us, right? So there's no dogs. She said, well, was one of the staff got a dog? And I was like, no, there is no dog in the building. She said, but I saw that it went around the end of the sofa thing and walked into. I went, no, and she just went, oh no. So yes, she possibly saw a ghost in the castle.
Are you alright, Sam?
You're gonna stay, Sam.
Do you need to lie down? You're right. Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to when Sam stays on his own.
In the scary
Can
bed.
we afford to hire out the whole place so that Sam can literally stay
Just Sam.
on his own,
Yeah.
on his own in the.
No, I think what's better is we actually, in about a year's time, when we have 6 million listeners to this, we get everyone to come along. We rent out the castle, everyone can come and stay, and we just basically watch you for the night in the haunted rooms, and we just film you.
Locked in a room with a load of cameras pointing at you. Yeah. Perfect. So you can look forward to that.
I'm already.
That's going to be coming up.
You can buy a ticket for that.
You can buy a ticket. You can be there yourself. Maybe even stay in the castle that night. Meet the team.
Pre-book now.
Buy yourself a science snake mug.
Exercise various members of the team. Exorcise, not exercise.
Treadmill. Yeah.
Well,
like dog spit.
The dog spit.
Dog spit. Yeah. We're going to put that's going to be our first experiment.
Actually, no, you're
Put
not allowed
Sam
to
in
touch it because it is one of 2, I think, original ones left in the country.
And weirdly, because
So
I've
there's a-
seen one somewhere else.
Oh.
I'm
Is
certain.
it in
Was
that
it in
book?
your
Is it an illustration?
It was in a dream.
Is it in Tom Jordan's diary?
I dreamt I had.
What was it? What went into the wheel that you saw? Was it a dog? Or
Yeah, it was a dog, yeah.
An angry movie.
Or was it an Angry Movies? No, the Angry Movies is on the spit.
Right, okay.
It's deceased. It saw another shadowy Angry Movies and then got killed by a puma. I think that readily brings us to the end of this week's episode. Probably for the best. We haven't at this point had any more interfering with from other realms. Although you may have just heard a beep outside from that was a car.
Is that the second?
our
Or was that the
second?
third
Oh.
beep of doom?
That was we've had a siren and we've had a text of doom, but that was the first beep of doom, thankfully. So all that really remains is to say thank you very much for listening, which hopefully you have been doing. This isn't just going out to us listening back to it. Thank you to Dani.
Thank you.
Thank you to Ross.
And I thank you.
Thank you to Sam.
Thanks.
And thank you from me. We look forward to chatting at you next time. Bye for now.
Bye bye.
Goodbye.
Bye bye.